You know, I've thought about taking the fencing down around these trees in the orchard now. Now that the trees have matured, they're taller, they're well above the fence, and I've crown raised the trees above the fence. So mostly the first branches are at least 4 feet up, several of them 5 feet up, and then above that. The problem is if I take the fence off, in some of these trees, the first apples, or the only taste I get of some variety, might be the limbs on the inside or the apples on the inside protected by the fence. So I do have to take them off someday because it's kind of hard to shoot a gun or a crossbow through all these fences that are in the way. And I'm hunting from the cabin there with the crossbow this fall. Here is the Scarlet Surprise apple. I'm going to pick one of these. It is June 19th. Sorry, July. It is July 19th. And this is how red it is already. The bark is even rather red. And I'm going to cut this and show you what it looks like on the inside, because this is called a red-fleshed apple. Now that the sun is set and the light's a little better, I'll continue with the July 19th orchard walk here in the front yard, what I call the home orchard. Front yard Honeycrisp, no apples there. The Shizuka though is doing real well. In fact, I've thinned it and thinned it and thinned it, and the apples are getting, every apple that's left, about 2 inches in diameter now, and not a spot on them. I'm going to have to prop up these limbs way up. They'll all be dragging the ground. That limb right there that I have a stake on was already right in the ground. It's a very spreading tree. That's the Shizuka. Probably get at least a bushel of fruit off this one this year. The McCowan is spreading nicely with the weight of its apples here. This is the first time this limb has been hanging down. Again, I've pruned all the spotty apples off and all the small ones. So I'm going to have McCowan, Shizuka. There's a few John of Gold over here on this tree. It did not set many blossoms this year. I did cut it back quite a bit because it was getting it was kind of getting long, wispy branches, and I need to tame it in a little bit. My grapes are growing on the living fence around the yard, and I do have some fruit on some of these, as you can see. Even though I have some 3 in a bunch, even 4 or 5, 6 in a bunch, like this, 3s, 4 here, 3 there. Since the tree isn't full all over, I'm letting bunches grow. I figured the tree can put out that much fruit without hurting it. So we have John of Gold, we have McCowan, we have Shizuka. Over here, the Cortland didn't set too heavily. That's not quite a surprise because I pruned it back kind of heavy to encourage vegetative growth, and it's a tip bearer, the Cortland is, so I probably pruned off a bunch of spurs, but it had a lot of blossoms. We just had sort of a wet blossom time this year. The Fuji over here is loaded, and I've pruned and thinned and thinned. Thinned off lots and lots of apples. I keep pulling a few off. The Fuji don't seem to put on a lot of size over the summer, especially when it starts getting hot. They just sort of wait around, and but in the fall, when it starts getting cooler again, I see them put on some size. So this tree will probably give me a couple bushel, maybe 3 bushel. If they get large like they should, I hope I thinned them a lot enough. Still have quite a few on there. Liberty's got a good crop this year. Yeah, last year it was just kind of spotty, but this year it is all ready to go. So, good crop of Liberty up here by the house. Kind of a showy apple. It's pretty red in the fall. Now I'll look down there at the Gala tree. The Gala, I call it the Gala. I'm 95% sure it's a Gala. It's putting on like gangbusters this year. I haven't thinned this as much as the ones up on top of the hill. So there are some small ones need to be taken care of, but not many worms left on there, the wormy apples. There are a few small ones. There's some frost damaged ones, but this tree, I do have some videos on the Gala, on how I know that it's a Gala. And here's the, I'm going to zoom in on that just a second. It's the smoothie tree, and it's loaded. And a lot of those limbs I can't get to thin them out unless I get a long stick and start whacking at it. So let's go down here, down the hill. Some of the branches, this branch I can reach now, and it's just loaded with little ones. I suspect these were not pollinated. Some trees will set apples and grow small apples even though they don't get pollinated. You can tell if they're not pollinated by opening the apple up, and you'll notice that small seeds don't get dark. So these might as well just get pulled off. Most other limbs have kind of this whole limb is this way. Maybe the limb is has a mutation on it. Could be. That's a little better. You get some mummified apples like this. But overall, the tree is in real good shape, and the apples are growing pretty quickly. There's some bird damage. Let's see. No, that might be frost damage. If it's deep enough frost damage, it doesn't grow too well, and the apple grows up and around it. So yeah, that's kind of a scabby stuff. That's frost damage, and the apple's growing around it. Sometimes it's not very deep, and it just stays on a surface, sort of rusting. But the tree looks pretty good. Look at all those apples up top too. The deer will be in the backyard and feasting on all these apples down here that are within reach. I had wondered if the limbs on this smoothie would ever come down. They were so long and upright limbs, like this one still, which doesn't have many apples on. But this limb used to be just like it. Notice the leaves are upside down. That's because the limb used to be pointing up at 45 degrees and not down, and all of these are coming down. So the tree is changing shape radically this year. It is mature. The deer will get to all these low limbs in time, and I'll probably just prune them back shorter, and the upper limbs will then start weighing down and take their place. So that's how the tree matures, and I'll have to live with it. It does bring the apples down to a manageable height that I can pick from.